What's up, you guys? This is your fellow monster hunter, Andre Gower from the Monster Squad, giving it up to Brian P. Easton and his Autobiography of a Werewolf Hunter series. This, my friends, is Whiskey with the Werewolf Hunter.
Thank you, Andre Gower, for that fine introduction. Any other Monster Squad fans in the house? I mean, come on, right? Hello, everyone. I'm Brian P. Easton, and I am the author of the Autobiography of a Werewolf Hunter series, and this is Whiskey with the Werewolf Hunter. Now, as you can see, we are not actually at the Werewolf Bar tonight. We're at the Werewolf Saloon. It's something we're going to try out, see how we like it. If you don't like it, or if you do, let me know in the comments down below. So, I don't know what it is about flavored whiskeys. Nowadays, everybody is doing a honey-flavored whiskey. Jack Daniels has one. Jim Beam has one. Wild Turkey has one. Even Evan Williams. It's just the end thing. But I had never tried Seagram's 7 Dark Honey before. So I picked it up. It was in a bargain bin, and I thought, why not? I mean, it's not that I don't like the honey whiskeys. I do. I mean, they're a nice, sweet, sipping kind of a whiskey, but it's not something you'd want to have every day. It's not something I'd want to have every day. But anyway, we're gonna give it a try as our creature of the night. It's almost viscous. It's got a real syrupy kind of a pour to it. Cheers. And that tastes just exactly like I thought it would. No big surprises there, no disappointments. It's a honey-flavored whiskey. Well, it's been a while since we've had Dr. T. Broussard with us here on the show. Since in the last 3 or 4 months, we've mainly been focused on interviews with the anthology that we've got coming out, Legends of the Werewolf Hunter, coming your way in this Halloween. And we're about halfway through that project as far as the interviews go. We're about halfway through our slate of writers on that. But tonight I'm pleased to bring back our in-house occult expert, Dr. T. Broussard, and he's going to be discussing something that interests me quite a bit and something which factors heavily into my novels. I'm talking about ghosts and spirits. Now, there's a tendency to lump a lot of different types of these entities into one category and call it ghost. But to do that is really an oversimplification of a much more complex area of the supernatural. With that in mind, I asked Doc to say a few words about it this evening with the goal of finding some additional clarification in what we tend to generically think of as ghosts. So here's Dr. T. Broussard from Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
This is Dr. T. Broussard speaking as part of Whiskey with the Werewolf Hunter. Today, after a rather prolonged absence from the show, I'll be speaking about souls, spirits, wraiths, and revenants. In many paradigms, cosmologies around the world, you'll find that human beings are seen as being threefold: spirit, soul, and body. You find this in the Bible. You find this in many paradigms around the world. You'll often find these three broken into further and further categories, but for the purposes of this discussion, we'll just stick with the three. The spirit is the eternal part that in many cases is what is reincarnated, if reincarnation is a part of the paradigm. It is the part of the infinite divine spark that each person is. The soul is what binds the spirit to the body, and the soul is physically manifest in the blood. That's why if you lose enough blood, you sever the connection between the body and the spirit, and thus you die. And even in the Bible it says that the soul of the body is in the blood. The life is in the blood. That's where the basis of vampirism comes in, because by feeding on blood, the vampire is able to bind its spirit to its body without having a soul of its own, which is what creates what we call undeath, being neither dead nor alive in the usual sense. Now, the soul is what becomes a ghost after death. Soul typically has two parts, one more spiritual, the other more carnal. If the more spiritual aspect is dominant, the soul does not persist as a ghost very long, for 3 to 9 days is standard, and so any kind of manifestation or apparition will be very brief. The ghost or soul will dissipate, and the spirit will reincarnate. If the more carnal aspect of the ghost is dominant, the ghost has the risk of becoming a wraith, which is what does your haunting, because a wraith wants to persist, it wants to continue, it wants to become a power, and cannot let go. If you think of the soul as the memory of a given incarnation, a wraith is that memory file corrupted. It's twisted. It's convinced itself that it is the spirit and not just a cosmic fingerprint that the spirit is leaving behind. Now, when you talk about spirits and souls, you also talk about things like angels, demons, nature spirits, elemental spirits, big spirits, small spirits. One thing that makes them a spirit and not a soul is that spirits are eternal. They're not going anywhere. They're meant to exist eternally. Now, this also brings up the point of, what about selling one's soul? What about giving one's soul up? When you sell your soul, let's say, you are committing a given incarnation to the service of whatever you're selling your soul to, whatever you're committing your soul to. If that commitment is against the spirit that soul is a part of, that selling of one's soul diminishes that spirit, and thus is a victory for whatever that spirit is opposed to. It is common for a spirit to be bound to a path from lifetime to lifetime, in which case, in each incarnation, that commitment is reenacted. And this is where you get things like the Dalai Lama and other sort of returning masters. They've committed themselves lifetime after lifetime to this path, and so their spirits are naturally drawn to it, and their souls are drawn together, forming a kind of vehicle for the spirit, by which comes about a ready-made body, because if spirit and soul are brought together well, they will naturally attract the elements necessary to make a body for themselves. Since we've already mentioned vampirism, I'll move on to revenants. Revenants are beings that have died and in some fashion come back, typically without full cognition. They may have an abnormal hunger for life, but in essence they've come back wrong. They are typically lesser forms of undead than, say, a full-blown vampire or even a zombie. Again, with a zombie you have an organic form that has been reanimated, with its soul being imprisoned by a sorcerer, which is using that soul to manipulate the body. The spirit is not involved in the case of a zombie. And in actual zombification, there is no hunger for brains, there are no viral components. With a real zombie, you're dealing with a person that was killed in a specific manner by poison, and the body entered into a state close enough to death so that the soul can be displaced from the body of a sorcerer that would then claim that soul and then use it to control the body. If the spell is working quickly enough, the soul will go back to the body, draw the spirit back to the body, and then the person will return to life. However, in many cases, that's not possible. The spirit moves on, and the body dies, so that undeath becomes true death. Now, in that we are talking about spirits, this being a may talk about why the werewolf and wendigo are natural enemies. The wendigo is a vampiric spirit. It is a spirit of hunger. It is a spirit of cold hunger for life and continuance. It's a spirit of survival gone bad, if you will. Being such, it is opposed to the werewolf, because whereas the wendigo seeks blood, soul, and meat, the werewolf seeks the meat and its own fury. It doesn't really care as much about the soul, save that it delights in taking life, which releases souls. And the more lives it takes, the stronger the werewolf gets, in many paradigms. The wendigo, however, focuses on the soul, and this puts them at odds because their one prey animal is man. And, gets predators after the same game animal, there will be conflict. Now, that being said, just because the wendigo and the werewolf are enemies, and the wendigo is vampiric, this does not lead credence to the relatively recent idea of there being some kind of war between vampires and werewolves. This is an idea in the media that might be 20 to 30 years old, if that old, because in most ancient mythologies, the person that is a werewolf in life, depending on the lineage, can become a vampire after death. This is why in many old legends, the wolf is as much a creature of the vampire as it is the werewolf. Now, all that being said, a lot of these matters revolves around the condition of soul and the spirit being affected by what one does in life. In the mythos of Sylvester James, his soul and spirit are jeopardized by what he does in reaction to what he's been through, the drugs, the alcohol, the hard living, as much as by the trauma that causes him to do those things. In other words, he gives up a lot of his own vitality by not taking care of himself. If you want a healthy spirit, a healthy soul, you have to be good to yourself. And you have to be true to the path that you've chosen in this life. When you are not, when you sell your soul, for example, you are giving up a portion of your spirit for that incarnation to another path, which drains you. Now, I'm not saying that you should go to this path or that path. That's not me to say. But whatever your path is, whether it's right-hand path, what most people would think of as good, or left-hand path, what most people think of as evil, or Christian, Jewish, Muslim, take your pick. You have to be true to that path. Even if your path is atheism or Gnosticism, that might be a necessary road for your spirit to take for an incarnation or two. Because the whole idea is that the spirit must experience all facets of existence. So, in the case of Sylvester James, him becoming, or potentially becoming a wendigo, fulfilled some need of his spirit. And if you look at it that way, the ups and downs of life become necessary steps to get to the better parts of life, and hopefully an easier incarnation as things go on. So, a hard incarnation, a difficult incarnation, points toward an easier one to come, if one is willing to endure the present difficulties. So, when things look hard or feel hard, just remember, things worked out in life, and that much less to be worked out in the afterlife, whatever that might be. I'd like to thank Brian P. Easton for this opportunity once again to be part of Whiskey with the Werewolf Hunter. I wish you all well, and mind the moon.
Thank you, Doctor. You are appreciated. We're going to switch gears here for a minute and get on a subject that is completely not werewolf related at all, because I want to share something with you that I came across, something that I had really all but forgotten about, but found it the other day. It's a music video from a hardcore band back from where I come from about 20 years ago. The band is called AOY, which is short for Assassin of Youth, which was a anti-marijuana film, I think, back in the 50s. Anyway, the black and white film footage that was used for the music video comes from a short film that I starred in, like I said, about 20 years ago for a friend of mine who was in a cinema class down at SIU Carbondale. The title of the film was The Pugilist, played by yours truly, and it mostly features me just getting my ass handed to me. But the idea behind the story is that I portray this bare-knuckle fighter who is condemned to fight the same fight and lose it throughout all of eternity because of some mortal sin he's committed. I believe he was supposed to have murdered his wife. Is that right? Yeah, I don't remember either. Anyway, the boys in the band were friends with the student director, and he gave them their permission to use the movie for their video, which is still on YouTube, I think. So anyway, submitted for your approval or merely your observation, here is Untitled by AOY and my film debut.
Deep down within my mind, I fight in a joy.
What I remember most about making that film was having to change into the same grimy clothes take after take. Again and again. We would practice one night, and then it might be a week before everybody could get together again, and then we'd do a couple of nights of shooting, and then it might be another week before we could get together again. But since the video had to look like it was all done in one take, I had to wear the same clothes scene after scene and shot after shot. So I kept them in a Ziploc bag to keep them in just a pristine state of filthiness, which they were. It was hot, and we filmed in an old garage, and it was grimy. Anyway, they just got a little nastier every time I had to put them on. And so I didn't have any designs on pursuing a film career after that. Anyway, before we go this evening, I want to take just a few more minutes to say a little bit more about the Legends of the Werewolf Hunter anthology that I mentioned earlier. And we've been talking about it since the first of the year. But for those of you who are new to this announcement, we've got a crew of talented writers working on individual short stories that are connected in some way to my autobiography of a Werewolf Hunter series. Whether they feature characters from the original books, or a continuation of plots, or maybe just new ideas to link up to the novels. Our authors have been hammering out their first drafts up until this month, and then we're going to polish them up. They're going to be nice and shiny for you, or maybe not nice and shiny, maybe dark and gritty is more apropos. But anyway, there's going to be coming your way this Halloween, and I think you're going to love it. And that's going to do it for me for tonight. Thanks for subscribing and clicking the like button. And until next time, happy hunting and mind the moon.